In our previous video, we introduced you to Jamaica's first serial killer, the Mad Doctor of Edinburgh, Lewis Hutchinson, where mental illness was blamed for his depravity. But what truly defines a serial killer? Are they born or are they made? Welcome back to Crime or Mystery, where we cover crimes, mysteries, and everything in between. A serial killer is defined as someone who kills 3 or more people in distinct incidents over time. Biological predispositions may lay the groundwork for certain traits like impulsivity or aggression. Some serial killers exhibit traits of personality disorders such as psychopathy, sociopathy, or narcissistic personality disorder. These conditions can impair empathy and moral judgment. While not all serial killers are mentally ill, underlying psychological issues often contribute to their behavior. Environmental factors, particularly traumatic experiences, often act as the catalyst that turns predispositions into criminal behavior. Ultimately, the reality is that serial killers are neither solely born nor entirely shaped by their experiences. It is the combination of innate traits and life circumstances that usually. This is the story of Theodore Johnson, a man who moved from the harsh realities of life in Jamaica to the streets of Wolverhampton, UK, in search of a new life, only to leave a trail of death behind. Born in Jamaica in 1954 as one of 11 children, Johnson's early life was not glamorous, and as he grew older, the hardships of life in Jamaica made Johnson set his sights on leaving. In 1980, in search of new opportunities and a fresh start, he left his homeland with his then-wife, Ivonne Johnson, and they settled in the city of Wolverhampton in central England. Johnson found work at a car repair service center, and Ivonne worked at a factory. They had 2 sons by this time, and for a while, life for the couple seemed promising. But it wouldn't last, because beneath the surface, darkness was brewing. The first outburst of Johnson's true violence happened in 1981 during the couple's first year in the UK together. It began with them having an argument over a seemingly trivial matter, Johnson's choice of clothing for church. Words escalated, tempers flared, and what began as a minor disagreement quickly spiraled out of control. Johnson, in a fit of anger, struck Ivonne over the head with a vase before chasing after her and pushing her off the balcony of their 9th-floor Wolverhampton apartment. Unfortunately, Ivonne would not survive the roughly 100-foot fall and succumb to her injuries. This was not a case of whodunit, so Johnson was swiftly arrested and charged for murder, but he was ultimately convicted of manslaughter due to provocation. Not many details of Johnson's defense are known, but it was reported that while in jail, he wrote to his neighbors stating that Ivonne was abusive and violent towards him, and on this occasion he simply snapped and fought back. It appears his defense was quite compelling, since the judge, during his sentencing, characterized Johnson as a battered husband who had suffered violence at the hands of his wife. Johnson was sentenced to just 3 years in prison, which was a bitter pill to swallow for Ivonne's family, who felt justice had not been served. Unfortunately, the death of his first wife was just the beginning of Johnson's violent history, and he was now on his way to becoming a serial killer. 11 years after the first killing, in 1992, Johnson fortuitously met another Ivonne Bennett. The two quickly began a relationship with Ivonne, blissfully unaware of Johnson's unnerving past. They moved in together in Finsbury Park, and soon after Ivonne gave birth to their daughter. Their relationship soon soured when Johnson discovered Ivonne was having an affair. But Ivonne's sister Janet said Johnson was very controlling, telling Ivonne where to go and who to talk to. The couple separated, with Ivonne moving out, but Johnson grew increasingly obsessed. He began stalking Ivonne, and after one violent confrontation, the police had to remove him from her home. But the horror was only beginning as the obsession continued to grow. And in 1993, while their 2-year-old daughter slept, Johnson struck again. Johnson had brought Ivonne a box of chocolate in a bid to win her back. But in a decision she would not live to regret, Ivonne refused them, and Johnson flew into a rage yet again. He strangled Ivonne with a belt until the life crept from her body in the dead of night. After the murder, Johnson called the police and confessed to the killing before he attempted to end his own life by hanging himself from a nearby tree. The police found him before he could make himself his third victim. Again, Johnson was charged with the murder of another partner, albeit they were separated at the time. With his confession, Johnson could not deny the murder, but his defense painted him as a man suffering from severe depression and a personality disorder, which the prosecution accepted. As a result, Johnson pleaded guilty to manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility, and instead of another term of confinement in prison, he was sent to a secure psychiatric institution indefinitely. In 1994, a period of both unescorted and escorted release commenced, and it was during an unescorted leave from the mental hospital in the same year that Johnson met Angela Best, a 51-year-old mother of 4 who had moved from Manchester to Tottenham. In 1996, Johnson applied to a mental health tribunal for a conditional discharge from the hospital, but he was refused. He applied again in October 1997, and this time he was released on the condition he would tell doctors and social workers about any new relationships with women. He, however, never disclosed his relationship with Miss Best. Their relationship grew quickly, and though Johnson's mental health was under supervision, he continued to keep his relationship secret for the almost 20 years he and Angela were together. During that time, Johnson also never revealed to Angela his previous killings of former lovers and the accompanying convictions. But in September 2016, the truth about his violent past came to light. Angela discovered by chance details of Johnson's past after finding letters that detailed one of the killings, which prompted him to reveal both of his previous convictions. After discovering his criminal past, Angela ended the relationship. Despite Johnson's obsessive declarations of love, Angela moved on and found happiness elsewhere. Johnson, devastated, refused to let go. On December 15, 2016, Angela visited Johnson at his Islington flat, intending to help him with an appointment at the Jamaican embassy. But once inside, the violence erupted again. Johnson struck Angela at least 6 times with a claw hammer before strangling her with a dressing gown cord. Despite her desperate attempts to fight back, she was killed in a brutal and bloody rage. Hours later, Johnson threw himself in front of an express train at Cheshunt railway station, hoping to end his own life. He survived, but lost his right arm and left hand in the process. As emergency services treated Johnson for his self-inflicted injuries, police discovered Angela's lifeless body at his home. Once again, Johnson had killed another partner, cementing himself now as a serial killer. He was arrested and charged with murder. At his trial, Johnson confessed to the murder of Angela Best. His lawyer claimed that he hated himself for what he had done and wished he were dead. He was sentenced to 26 years in prison, but the Crown appealed, increasing his sentence to a minimum of 30 years. Angela's family described their loss as immeasurable. She had been a loving mother, grandmother, and sister, and her death left a void in the lives of her children and grandchildren. Angela's son described her as the type of person who was always going out of her way to help people, and that unfortunately, that was the reason she met her demise. Outside the Old Bailey, Lorraine Jones, Angela's sister, gave a statement on behalf of the family, saying, "She was the heartbeat of our family." This convicted murderer tried to play the system as he has successfully done 2 times before. He used diminished responsibility as the cause of his murderous actions. This time, however, by eventually pleading guilty to murder 12 months after his arrest. He has shown in all cases he was clearly of sound mind. He knew exactly what he was doing when he plotted and executed the horrific murder of our beautiful and beloved Angela. Do you agree with Angela's family that Johnson knew exactly what he was doing, operating with a clear mind, free of mental illness? Or do you believe he was plagued by psychological issues that hindered his ability to exercise self-control and moral judgment, which ultimately led him to commit murder? And what about Johnson's 1997 release from prison after committing 2 murders? Then his subsequent success in concealing his relationship with Angela for almost 2 decades from the authorities. Do you think those were failures of the system, whatever the reason? Johnson's story is one of immense tragedy. The lives of 3 women lost, whose only crimes were that they met and fell in love with Theodore Johnson. The scars left by Johnson's actions will never fade. His victims, Ivonne Johnson, Ivonne Bennett, and Angela Best, are to be remembered not for the violence of their deaths, but for the lives they once led and the impact they made on those they left behind. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more videos. See you next time.